Me. Good evening, everybody. We'll make a start now. Welcome to Confor's Woody Wednesday webinar, and welcome back to those of you who were with us the last time, and also to those of you who are joining us for the first time tonight. My name's David Lee. I'm just the host, and to run us through the webinar tonight, the aim is to understand more about the challenges faced by harvesting contractors during the current crisis, and to look ahead to the recovery stage and what kind of support contractors might need as things return to some kind of normal, whatever that may be. Although the focus tonight is mainly on harvesting, we have further webinars planned, so please look out for them. We have 5 panelists tonight to help guide us through the discussion. Mark Curtis, a forestry contractor based in Ireland, known for his involvement with the Machine Operators blog. Toby Allen of Say It With Wood, a small contractor based in Herefordshire. Andrew Smithy Smith, a lecturer at the Scottish School of Forestry, who spent many years in the forest as a contractor. Caroline Ayre, Confor's national manager for England, who lives in Devon, and Stuart Goodall, Confor's CEO, who's based in Edinburgh. So we have a very wide geographical distribution of our speakers tonight. We will start with a few observations from each speaker, but the majority of our time will be spent in discussions and questions and answers. We've had some questions posed in advance, so thank you for them. And you can also ask questions and make comments via the chat function, which is to the top right of your screen, the little speech bubble. If you click on that and add a question or comment in the box, I will try and get to those comments and questions as the discussion unfolds. We have about 60 people on the call, so I'll ask the questions rather than bringing everyone in individually, just to try and make the best use of the time and to help us move through things quite smoothly. Apart from the main contributors, I think everybody just about has turned their mics off now. Thank you very much. And their cameras, unless you are one of the main speakers. If Google Meet's new to you, just move your cursor towards the bottom of the screen, and you'll see to either side of the off button the mic and the camera signs. Just click on there if you want to mute either of them. Don't press the off button, please, although you can rejoin if you do. If you're on Twitter, please tweet, tag in at Forest and Wood, and use the hashtag Confor webinar, please. At this point, during a live event, I would normally do the housekeeping. I can confirm that there is no fire alarm planned tonight, but if you think you might have left a pan on the hob, please go and check now. I'm assuming that you will all know where the toilet facilities are located, so I won't go through that for about 40-something different participants. We'll finish no later than 8 p.m. If we don't get through all the questions, or if you want more detail on a specific issue, you'll have the chance to follow up on that with an email that will be sent to you tomorrow. We're very keen to know what questions and concerns you have in the current crisis, if there are any issues that Confor hasn't fully addressed about COVID-19, and to use this event to improve what we offer. Please continue to use Confor's COVID-19 hub, where new information is being published all the time. The webinar's been recorded, and this will be available on the Confor website tomorrow and will be shared with you in the email afterwards. Okay, so that's enough from me. To begin with, I'd just like to ask Caroline Ayre from Confor to summarise what she's heard from contractors in recent weeks and what Confor has done so far to support its members through this crisis.
Hi, good evening, everybody. I'll do my best. Hello to those that I know, and also hello to those that I don't. So I think there's 4 areas that I'd like to cover. The most importantly being cash flow challenges. We've heard that many small businesses and many large businesses are having cash flow issues as managing their fixed costs as income drops off and arrives more slowly. We will have somebody to talk to you. Kate, who's on the call, should be able to talk to you later about the support that the government is providing for that. So the new self-employment income support scheme that should go live, I think it's next week. Small business bounce back loans and the self-assessment tax payments that have been delayed. All of these are available on government websites, but hopefully Kate will be able to cover that off in more detail further on in the call. Stimulating markets, we do a weekly update. We have Jo O'Hara, who we have commissioned to do a weekly update. She works with Stuart Goodall, our CEO, on liaising with all the market and other wood-based organisations. And that report is done, I'd say, on a weekly basis. It comes out on a Friday along with a supply chain overview. I can send you, any of you, that report later on if you so wish, or email me tomorrow. But essentially, stocks of raw materials are reportedly high. Some degree mitigates the risk of difficulties in critical supply chains. The issue is, as the panelboard sector restarts at scale in advance of the supply of co-products or the re-establishment of wastewood supply chains, will the sawlog material be able to go to market? A biggie, I think, for a lot of contractors has been continuing motor manual work. I know that Forestry England have resumed chainsaw work where it is safe to do so. I know that Till Hill and others at one point also had a cessation of motor manual work on the advice of the emergency services and specifically mountain rescue, because they didn't want to have a overcapacity issue if there was a risk, an accident. This is still on a case-by-case basis, I believe, and I know that FLS have still got an overall cessation of motor manual chainsaw, but we also know, on a positive note, that some are returning to work where it is safe to do so. We've been trying our best to support contractors. We work with the FCA as closely as we can. We recognise you're a key part of our sector. Toby and Ali and Martin Neve have been one of 2 of 8 stars in our 8 videos that we put on our website, part of a series explaining why parts of the sector are continuing to work, and thank you very much for that. I believe that they're becoming social media stars, with Martin having 26,000 views and Toby almost at 20,000. Again, Confor and FCA have also cooperated on our safe worksite proposals, and this webinar is just part of efforts to work more closely together. We can't just wave a magic wand, we know that, and resolve all the issues facing contractors, but we do want to understand those issues better, and we do want to work with you so we can highlight to governments and other stakeholders a better understanding of the challenges that face your sector. You are the kingpin in the forestry sector, and we recognise that. So part of tonight is about highlighting the challenges, but maybe also some of the opportunities that have arisen during COVID, and to explain to you what we are going to do on your behalf as we go towards recovery. Again, any questions throughout, I'm very happy to answer where I can. Back to you, David.
Okay, thank you very much, Caroline. As Caroline mentioned there, Toby Allen of Say It With Wood was involved in producing one of the videos for our series and has had 19,500 views. His partner Ali's video is currently standing at 16,500. So Toby clearly has bragging rights in his house. Toby, if you can stick your camera on, I'm going to bring you in now. Many of people on the call, I think, will know you, Toby, but for those who don't, if you can tell us a little bit about your business and what it does, and also a little bit about the main impacts of COVID-19 on your business and others you know, and the challenges ahead as you see them for contractors. Toby. We're not getting, Toby, we're not getting you clearly here at all. Toby, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, have you got your, do you want to try and put your camera on, Toby? And just so we can see, because the sound quality is quite poor, stick your camera on and then let's see, because last night we had a chat with Toby last night and it worked pretty well. Just try again, Toby. The sound quality is suddenly very poor. Just try again. Try and start again. Okay, we'll just wait. We'll wait for a while with Toby. Mark, I'm going to come to you while Toby tries to. We've got the reverse of the technical issues we had during the run through last night. Mark Curtis again will be pretty well known to many of you. Mark, can you give us a quick rundown of what you do and how you've had to adapt your own sort of working life in the last couple of months?
Well, we run a harvester and a forwarder here. I suppose we operate in the more or less the border region between the south and the north of Ireland. The mill we work for works on both. Yeah, it's obviously we're in this position at the moment where we're waiting on the government every week. Construction's closed at the minute. It's still going. We're working on quotas. Obviously, the mill is working at reduced capacity, so we're working at reduced capacity. But those of us that are working, others aren't. But yeah, we've had to change our way of doing things. Most of all, we were going that way anyway. There isn't so much of a paper trail anymore. We're doing a lot over on tablets and phones. A lot of paperwork has been done that way, which is one of the, we find very easy to work. And meetings, you're just having one where you might have had two or three. Keeping a distance at these meetings. When you're walking a wood, it's different. Stuff like that. And make sure you have your hand sanitizer, your wipes in the machine. Visitors in woods, you have a lot of that now where people are out and about walking. You have to be more alert to that. Plus, obviously, minding things like timber stacks, your heights, because it's not moving as quick. And it's just run-of-the-mill stuff that you would expect when there's a bit of a backlog.
And what is that? How bad is that backlog for you, Mark? How much have you seen a slowdown from yourself and what you're hearing from others in Ireland and across the UK?
There was the initial one in the beginning where there was that stop where the lockdown was put in place. The weeks before it was slowing. Then there was the initial lockdown, and for that weekend, there was a lot of people didn't really know what that meant. So you had people, should we go to work? Then the information started to come slowly. So we started talking on all I can speak about is myself at the mill, and we were given a quota, obviously, but it's a workable quota, and it's the best you could hope for really in the situation. And it's better than not working at all. It keeps the doors open and the bills paid, but it's obviously not ideal. It's not ideal for the mill either. Like they obviously can't just keep taking in timber if it's not going out. Pallets, wrapping paper, sort of pellets as well. The mill we cut for Balcast, they do pellets and all that. Bio wouldn't be as big a thing here in Southern Ireland or in Ireland in general as you would have in the UK. Brash recovery, that sort of thing. It's very rare with the sort of soft, wet spruce we'd have here compared to pine and larch and drier materials you'd have in the UK that would chip. Plus, we don't have a lot of bio burners here either. So it's different.
And what you see in terms of the mills, Mark, are you starting to see the mills looking? Do you think there's going to be more reopening and more activity in the near future?
Speaking to them at the minute, yeah, there seems to be a bit more buoyancy. Over here, there was an announcement that construction has gone back on the 18th. So you're having that initial where their builders are going to stock up a little bit on timber, and you see a bit more lorries on the road with commercial timber. So you can see that start up. You can see the wheels slowly starting to move, but I don't think it's not going to get back to anywhere near like it was. It's going to be a slow process.
Okay, well, thank you. Thanks for that, Mark. I think Toby's rejoined the call, but I'm going to go to Andrew Smith next. Smithy, from the Scottish School of Forestry, who's a long-standing contractor as well. Smithy, if you can unmute yourself and just tell us a bit about your own personal history as a contractor, how you moved into lecturing, and some of your concerns around the current crisis and what that might mean for training.
Yeah, okay. So started contracting when I was in school. So as my pals went to Pizza Hut and places like that for weekend work, I was getting dropped off in random woods to drive a forwarder. That's kind of the background to it, really. Here in the Wimblow in Sweden in 2005, and then back here again in a lot of kind of power line work, red zone work, that type of thing for SSE. I got into the election about 4 or 5 years ago, really by accident, but still kind of do bits and pieces of contracting for a few friends that are in the industry, and a little bit of FMO assessing as well. So locally here, I tried to speak to a few of the guys that I'm still quite friendly with in the last day or two in preparation for this, I suppose. And a bit of a mixed bag, really. So a lot of the guys that were cutting for sawmills are parked up at the moment, and I believe some of them have been parked up for about 4 weeks now. Some of the smaller contractors cutting for the OSB mill nearby, they're still going. A little bit of a discrepancy there because some of them are on a through the head payment and some of them are on a tonnage payment. So certainly one of the ones on the tonnage payment was mentioning that they're on quota really, so they're getting away about 10 loads a week when in actual fact they're needing about 30 loads a week away from the site. But obviously 10 loads is better than no loads, I guess. Most of them have had conversations with their finance companies as well. So the finance companies seem to be quite, I would say happy, but maybe obliging to set up payment holidays, as it were, for about 3 months, which is obviously added on to the end of their finance agreement. Kind of elsewhere as well, hauliers, local hauliers as well, a bit of a mixed bag there as well, in that some of them are parked up entirely. Some of them have moved into general haulage work where they can, and some of them are doing 2 or 3 days a week and then parked up for the rest of the time. All the contractors that I spoke to, none of them are interested in having trainees with them just now. They see it as being too much of a burden on their business, either for cost in general, but also from the point of view of cleaning down machines between shifts and operators. None of them are working on a double shift system. One of the guys, one of the 1-1 bands, has a friend who works offshore for him and tends to do a bit for him when he comes onshore, and they've put a stop to that really for the practicalities of cleaning down the machine between shifts. Going forward, I suppose my concerns are, will folk want to take on trainees in the post-COVID era? Probably not immediately, I guess. So how that will happen, or how we'll get around that, I'm not sure. At the college just now, we're having various discussions about getting our students through the practical element of their classes. So, for example, guys doing tractor driving, there's a practical element to that assessment as well as a written element in college. So we've had lots of discussions about how we can get them through that element there in college. So time will tell.
Okay, thanks very much, Smithy. What do you think? Are you've painted some pessimism there, but little bits of kind of light as well. What's your best guess over the next 3 to 6 months, as much as you can, as to what kind of activity levels you might see?
I think it really, locally, it's going to depend on how the construction sector gets going again. That's the big thing. There's no point in cutting solid material if there's no market for it. I think on the flip side, there's lots of people sitting at home just now and wanting to do improvements to their gardens and what have you. So there's quite a lot of what we call slatwood material up here getting cut. The local mill that produces the lap panel fencing's going through quite a lot of them just now. So obviously people are doing bits and pieces in their garden because they have the opportunity, I guess. Going forward, our projections at the moment for student numbers are actually very good. But of course, how many will actually come if they've still got concerns with social distancing and what have you come August, September time is anyone's guess, really, at this stage.
Okay. Thanks very much. Mark, would you like to come in on any of those kind of training issues? I mean, obviously Smith is talking largely about Scotland there. What's the situation with training that you're picking up in Ireland and maybe elsewhere?
I think it's much the same. I think, if I'm being totally honest, there's a lot of experienced drivers that are sitting at home at the minute. They'll probably be the first ones, the people who want to get back out working. The added thing, I think it's nearly exactly what I said, cleaning down machines between shifts. There isn't going to be 2 shifts. So, and over here you need an experienced operator with a trainee operator, and it isn't viable. No one wants, a lot of people don't, some people, if you're to apply the social distancing, you're not going to be able to get into a machine and show someone really what to do, and it's really hands-on, the need to show them. It's, in some ways you need to show them what not to do as well as what to do. So you need to be there yourself training them, as any trainer will tell you. It's, at the moment, you're not even allowed to travel together to work over here. That is the rules and regulations with this, social distancing. So training is going to be put on the back burner, I think. It's just one of those things that you're going to see. It's going to take longer to come back. It's going to be at the back of the queue, I think.
Okay. Just one other thing there, Mark. Sorry, I'm getting a bit. Yeah. Can you've muted your mic, Mark? Sorry. You talked last night when we had a chat through about accommodation is a challenge as well for contractors who are travelling to a lot of different sites. It's not as easy when the pubs and restaurants are closed to find places to stay, to find places to eat and drink as well. So how are people adapting to that?
Just maybe asking and looking around online, and there is some deals to be got with, say, Airbnb, holiday homes that aren't being used, apartments. It seems to be a lot of them now, flats, suites, little things in towns that aren't being used. Try and look for them. Some people are very happy to do that. Ireland never had the caravan thing. Our cuts will be very small. You're talking anything from 1,500 to 3,000 cube. Sometimes you don't have place for, you wouldn't have place for a caravan. No one's going to allow you to park in their yard at the moment. Plus, you don't want to be approaching people. You're a stranger in a lot of areas. Approach them. It's not working. So yeah, that is becoming. That would be one of the things that you would find. Even getting something to eat. There is no restaurants or anything open, so that's out of the question. There's nowhere open to eat. You just have to get something and make it yourself.
Okay, just one thing that you mentioned last night, Mark, was this. I think Toby mentioned it last night. We'll come to Toby in a minute and see how his internet's holding up. Is this issue of more people walking in the forests, and actually because a lot more people are at home, a lot more families are going out for walks in the forest. Toby said that people were kind of popping up when they least expected. Obviously, social distancing and safety issues there. Again, is that something that you've seen? Are you finding more people in the forests?
Yeah, in certain areas you will see people, but people walking in the forest around machines has been a long-standing issue. It's more so now when there's more people with time. Obviously, over here there was a 2-kilometre zone. Now there's 5. So yeah, people do use the forest for recreation and walking and everything. And yeah, you just have to, even with proper signage, to tend not to. If you were cutting a tree outside someone's front door, they'd nearly run. But seemingly they don't see any problem in walking right up to a machine. So you have to be a little bit more aware at the moment. Yes.
Okay. Right. We're gonna give Toby a go. Toby, I think you're back on the call. We'll see what the sound quality's like, and I'll just pop in if it's not so good. So can you just tell us, Toby, a little bit about your business and your kind of experiences of the last couple of months at Say It With Wood?
Okay. Yeah, just let me know if the sound's not coming through. Yeah, we run a timber yard in Herefordshire, predominantly sweet chestnut, which we make into fencing. We also do contracting in the summer. Coronavirus came about when I was actually working on a contract in Kent. So I came home and we had a big, we didn't know what to do, whether to shut the yard, whether to stay open, whether to finish the contract or whatever. We had a chat with our staff, and generally the staff wanted to carry on, apart from a couple who needed to stay home for reasons that, are obviously important. So yeah, we pushed on. Confor was a big help, you know, because obviously we've got quite a visible yard and people were driving past wondering what we were doing. And then I spent a very quiet fortnight in a caravan in Kent. You know, it's yeah. And gradually, as it's got through, we've kind of hit a kind of status quo, which seems good. You know, the garden fencing market's been good. You know, there's a lot of people wanting to get on with projects. Initially, the chainsaw ban cut all of our summer work out because we had a summer of ash dieback work coming up. Of course, you know, that's quite high risk with a chainsaw until it was for Till Hill. Luckily, you know, our local Till Hill guy is one of the good ones, and he gave us a softwood contract that we can do from the harvester forwarder without actually getting out the machines. So yeah, we've kind of hit a status quo. It's all right, and we're kind of concerned about what the next bit means. You know, how to bring the staff back and how to build up our business again, really.
Thanks, Toby. We're losing you a little bit at the end. I'll try. What's the kind of issues affecting you around cash flow at the moment? Is cash flow struggling, or are you managing okay? And have you had to kind of furlough? Did you furlough any staff?
Yeah,
I think Toby, just mute yourself again, and I'll come back to you in a minute because we're losing you again there. So if you can mute yourself, Toby, what I'll do is we'll move over to Stuart at Confor. Stuart, with Stuart Goodall, Confor CEO, one or two people have spoken there about thinking about the recovery stage and restarting more businesses where there hasn't been activity. Can you give us a bit of an update from Confor's point of view across the sector at the moment, across the different parts of the British Isles, about what's happening and how Confor's working with contractors and others to ensure that when people go back, they do so in a safer way as possible?
Yeah, will do. Thanks, David. I mean, what we've known is the government set tests for when an easing of lockdown can begin. And we're now in a position where we're starting to see them proposing ideas for how that easing could start to happen. And it's coming along at an interesting time because it's the same time as we're seeing market demand for timber begin to pick up. The positive thing for us is we're a largely outdoor-based industry, and we've got a number of mills that have got experience in safe working as they've continued to produce critical products, which means that we're relatively well placed to operate safely. And what we've been doing is lobbying for the sector to be in the vanguard of any easing in the lockdown controls. To support that, we've prepared or are preparing safe working protocols, and we've got those in place for nurseries and in-forest activity, which we developed with the Forestry Contracting Association. And we're also doing that now for milling. I'd have to say I was concerned a week ago that we were seeing different strategies for exiting lockdown beginning to appear across the 4 countries. But the latest I'm picking up is that's starting to come back together. And now the governments are focusing on how they can provide protocols for different types of activity like outdoor working, manufacturing, or retail, rather than approach it sector by sector basis. Thing is there's still the possibility of a different speed of progress by country or even within countries. So it's unlikely there's going to be a total UK movement in tandem. I can see that there could be some quicker progress in some parts of the UK than others. And for me, I'd say the saving grace in all of this is that pretty much every mill is producing a critical product: pallet wood, agricultural fencing, biomass, or packaging, which then means that anybody supplying them has been okay to work and can continue to work. And hopefully, as we see that activity increase overall, we'll be able to have that flow back up the sector.
Okay, thanks very much, Stuart. Smithy, I'll just bring you in briefly there, just in terms of Stuart's, you know, in Scotland there's been a slightly different approach to kind of construction. It looks like construction's starting to move a bit more in England already, and Scotland not so much. does that sort of, different path that Stuart's outlined give you some concerns about Scotland, getting back to work slightly more slowly?
Certainly, I have pals in the construction industry, certainly with excavators and stuff, and they've been put off site. I was speaking to one yesterday, and there's certainly no word of them getting back anytime soon. So yeah, I mean, definitely, I think, and the longer these sites are shut, then they're not going to get back up and running at the speed they were perhaps flying at. Some of the construction sites locally, they're not going to be that speed. I wouldn't have thought initially. Perhaps this year even.
Okay. And Mark, there's a question. I'm coming to some questions that have been sent in now in advance. Fraser Rummans from Forestry Journal is asking if you see any differences, Mark, in the way the situation's been handled in the different parts of the United Kingdom and then in the Republic of Ireland. And have you got any feedback from foresters elsewhere in different parts of the world, and how the attitude there is maybe differed or is similar to what's happening here?
I think it's pretty much similar. I think the Irish market and the UK market is pretty similar. They're feeding into the same construction industry, really. As for on the blog, you see things there about in Italy and places like that. It seems to be pretty much the same. We didn't have any ban on saw cutters over here, none that I was aware of anyway. But it was pretty much the same. Once that initial thing where nobody knew what was going on, then it's slowly everyone knew that whether they either had work or they didn't. A lot of people done a week on, week off. You work to whatever you were given.
And Caroline, are you seeing in England, Caroline, are you starting to see, construction starting to happen again, and you're starting to see things moving a bit more than perhaps up in Scotland? And
well, anecdotally, yes. B&Q, Travis Perkins seems to have opened some of their sheds. I can't say I've been to any of them recently. Word is that a firm down here, Taylor Wimpey, are due to start again in sort of about now or in the next couple of weeks. But all of this is anecdotal. I suppose we're waiting for the government's statement on Sunday as to what this sort of phased recovery is going to mean for everybody.
Okay. While you're on, Caroline, as well, when we were at the last webinar, it was Toby who was asking actually about chainsaws, and you talked about a kind of, common sense case by case basis on chainsaw use. Are we still in that position? Has there been a common sense approach? Are chainsaws starting to be used again in sensible situations?
I believe so. Yeah, I said in my introduction that Forestry England had put a sort of a cessation on all their chainsaw work, other than those that were needed, high risk stuff that needed, or not high risk but needed chainsaw users. FLS, as I said, I think have still got a cessation on motor manual, but there are those that are returning to work where it's safe to do so, and that seems to be it's a case by case basis, and the phrase seems to be where it is safe to do so when you've done a risk assessment. But I'm sure there are many others on this call, managers on this call, who might be able to advise me. So, excuse me.
Okay, thank you, Caroline. Another question that came in. We'll try Mark and we'll try Toby. Per Animalm from Komatsu Forest Limited. What precautions would contractors expect service providers to take when working around their machines to reduce the risk for COVID-19 infections spreading? So, Mark, maybe you can take that one first.
Well, if Per could do it free, it'd probably take a lot of the shock out of it at the moment. No, I think it's just to use common sense, social distancing, just try and organise the jobs so you're keeping apart, and wear gloves and just sanitize. It just seems to be the only way of doing it.
Yeah. And Toby, are you there? Are you with us, Toby? Can you hear me, Toby? We'll take that as probably a no then. Toby's not there anymore. Another question, Caroline, I'm going to come back to you on this. Fraser Rummans again at Forestry Journal. We've seen a marked increase in rural crime, along with construction, agriculture and machinery theft during the pandemic. Is there growing concern about crime, and what steps might be taken to help combat it?
Take the keys out of your kit and put your cords back in the barn. I'd say we've had to do it here. We're doing it across the country. Confor are part of Scotland Rural Crime Strategy. That goes through to, I think, 2021. In England and Wales, we actually did a piece in our magazine, Forestry and Timber News, last August, the 2019 August edition. And that was a 4-page article done by Rab Easton, who I think is on the call, and that was on protection from theft. And we also had a piece from the police on marking your kit as well. Everybody should be aware that there's theft going on, even in a pandemic where you're supposed to stay at home. Then there's kit being nicked. And I'm afraid that is going to continue. But as Confor, all we can do is try and signpost you to the best information possible.
Okay. Toby, you appear to be back and you appear to have a signal again. So what I was asking you before you went, Toby, was just a little bit about kind of cash flow for yourself and small businesses, and whether you'd furloughed any employees and what, you know, how you've coped with that, how you've coped with the furloughing. Can you hear me? Yeah, you're there, Toby.
The furloughing was a bit.
No, you're going. Well, we can't. Sorry, Toby, we can't hear you at all. Just try one more time. Try to call off and come back in again. Apologies for this, everybody. We had a good signal from Toby last night. It's just the way it goes sometimes. Mark, another question that came in was, is your experience that it's the larger contractors or the smaller contractors who've been worst hit, and are they being hit in different ways, or is everybody having to cope in a similar fashion?
I would say a similar fashion. I suppose obviously larger contractors have a bigger headache. They have more people working and more employees, more machines, more diesel bills, more insurance, more VAT, more, you know, things like that. They're going to have, big contractors probably have a bigger headache. You know, look, a big bill is hard on a small contractor and it's hard on a big, depending on the size. So there will be similarities, but bigger contractors probably will be feeling it a little bit more initially.
Yeah, okay. Just one of the questions that's coming on the chat from Laura Jeremy: will we see log market margins increase, decrease, or level out post COVID-19? So will we see the log market margins increase? Mark, any thoughts on that? And then maybe I'll bring that to Stuart as well.
It'll depend on how quick the construction gets up and going, and what amount of money is going to be put into it. Housing was getting a lot of cash injection here. Obviously, the homeless and social buildings and all that, they were ramping it up, and there was a lot of building going on. I think money is going to be the problem. I don't think anyone can deny there's going to be no tax breaks. All this some stage that they're paying billions at the moment. I don't know the figures to how many people are paid to be at home at the minute. I don't know how that's going to pan out. I think we're going to see what government, what plans. We haven't heard anything here. All we heard last week here was that May the 18th is the first phase for construction is going back. I suppose we'll see at what level. They're still talking that they're going to be, you know, that there's a lot of money still in the country, that people have it, and they're going to. But there's also another thing that's coming out this week is where mortgages are being withheld on people that were buying houses because obviously their circumstances have changed. So we don't know what effect that'll have running through the system either for building.
Okay, thanks, Mark. Stuart, on
that? Thanks, David. I always like it when I get thrown the what will the future prices or margins be questions. I mean, I'm a great believer at the end of the day, this all comes back to supply and demand. And when supply is strong and when demand is strong and supplies have to catch up, then margins and prices are higher, and you spin it the other way around, they're lower. I would reflect, some of what Mark has just said there, that what we don't know is what the state of the market's going to be, how much activity there will be in key markets like construction, house building. I sense that even once all the firms and the sites get back to work, safe distancing controls are going to mean there's a lower level of activity. So overall, there's going to be likely to be a smaller marketplace. But what we do also know is that even if the UK and Irish domestic sector were operating at full pelt, it still wouldn't be enough to supply the level of demand there is, for example, in England. So I think the key thing for me is how quickly and able we are as a sector to start bidding for and claiming those contracts as activity starts to resume. And if we're ready and the mills are able, then there's good opportunity there.
Thank you, Stuart. Smithy, I just wondered if you had any observations on prices, but more so that long-term impact in terms of, you're lecturing, you're seeing the students coming into the industry. You say that numbers are bearing up at the moment. How do you see that? Is it a good time to be coming into forestry at the moment, or do you think there are going to be more people who are a bit concerned?
All for the crystal ball, I suppose, but
they're all for the crystal ball at the moment, Smithy.
Definitely. I think, we've obviously got things like planting targets and that, which we're still wanting to reach, things like that. I think for us at the School of Forestry going forward, one of our concerns might well be students going on mid-year placements. So even management companies, are they going to really want to take on that extra member of staff in the short to medium term? That's obviously something that we'll need to discuss as well, as our students are kind of getting to the end of their first year. They should be going out on placement from June, July onwards, really. I think possibly short term, I think a lot of industries will struggle, because really folk are going to want any form of employment they can get, aren't they? To make up that their wage. Certainly forestry numbers seem to be fairly good for a number of years now in terms of students coming in. They haven't really gone up or down massively over the last few years, so I would like to think that they will continue. Folk might see it as an opportunity to retrain into some other industry, whether that's forestry or whatever. Remains to be seen, but yeah, I think there's got to be some light at the end of the tunnel, hasn't there?
Yeah, just briefly while you're on, another question that came in was what further support do you think the government could offer, to business generally and to forestry specifically? What specific actions would actually help the sector restart and recover effectively?
Well, you've mentioned already what the other industries are doing. Really, I think that's got to be as important as anything else. Maybe forestry directly isn't the one that should be supported. Maybe somewhere else. Our markets is the place that should be supported potentially. I'm just putting that out there. What support directly that forestry could have? I think for the contractors, they are dealing with massive overheads just now. And some sort of help or assistance there in some way, shape, or form would be beneficial, I think. Even when we get back to work, and we mentioned payment holidays earlier, potentially in finance. Just because we get back to cutting timber, say in July, it doesn't mean we're going to be fulfilling our maximum potential that we were fulfilling 6 months ago. I think that remains to be seen.
Oh, sorry, apologies. Kate Williams from Kingmore to Prouds with us to give us a brief update on some of the latest kind of self-employed support that potentially will be relevant to contractors and others. Kate, I think there's one specific support scheme that is about to go live. If you want to unmute yourself and come on, Kate.
Yeah, that's right. So the government have announced this week, whereas they originally said June, that the self-employed income support scheme is going live from the 13th of May. Okay, so just a rundown of the support scheme. Basically, the scheme allows you to claim a taxable grant of 80% of your average monthly trading profits over the previous 3 years. They will pay it out in a single instalment covering a 3-month period. The scheme, the amount of funding is actually capped at £2,500 a month, so each individual will receive a maximum of £7,500. Right, so the eligibility, you've got to have average profits of less than 50,000 per year. You need to have traded in the 2018-19 tax year, and you need to have filed your tax return before the 23rd of April 20. As you're probably all aware, filing online, it should have been filed by 31st of January 20, but they did give an extension to the 23rd of April. You need to have traded in the 2019-20 tax year and intend to carry on trading throughout this current tax year. Your business, it needs to have been adversely affected by COVID-19. I think it's probably fair to say that most businesses are going to fall into that bracket, especially when you go down the sort of reasons they're allowing are fewer customers, a supply chain interruption. If you're shielding, you're self-isolating, your staff are self-isolating and therefore can't come to work, all those sort of reasons are all acceptable. You need, the one crucial part is you need to have earned 50% of your taxable income from self-employment. I've got a few that are going to fall outside that. So this obviously applies for sole traders and partnerships. If you're operating through a limited company, obviously we've got a different scheme with there, in that you can obviously be furloughed as long as you haven't done any work. So the process, okay? Basically, you have to go to the government website. I've sent the checker sort of shortcut to it's now on the Confor website. So you go to this, you click on that link, you'll follow it through. You have to enter your UTR number and your national insurance number. You can find your UTR on a recent letter from HMRC or phone your accountant. Then it'll tell you if you're eligible. It'll also then give you a window of when your window begins that you can claim, okay? Lot that I've done, just doing the checker bit. Some are 8 o'clock on the 13th of May. Some are 8 o'clock on the 16th of May, which is obviously a Saturday, but there we go. You need to set up, each individual person has to set up their own government gateway account. Your accountant is not allowed to claim for you. Each individual needs to do their own claim. Then you basically...
Just because we're short on time, Kate, what I'll do, that's really helpful. We'll put the link, we will get the link on the Confor website, and we'll put it out in the email tomorrow that goes out to everybody who's been on this call, just to make sure they have got access to that. But, you know, that is very helpful. As Kate points out, you know, self-employment and limited companies, whatever way your business is set up, is going to be different. And as I said, there's a lot of information there on the Confor website that can be helpful with that. I just want to move to a last few questions and maybe just try Toby one more time. But first of all, there's a question there that's been asked by Wendy Holland Hawksworth. How are small forestry contractors supposed to get their people to work if they're limited to one person per vehicle? So can I bring in Mark there, and then we'll try Toby again?
Really, you don't have much choice. They're going to have to go in one vehicle. It's you can't keep 2 meters apart. If you can, you work away, but I don't know. I don't know how you do that. You just have to travel in different vehicles. That's what we're working on over here. That's the regulations we've been given. There's not a lot you can say other than that. But the other thing I'd say about when we're talking about the logs, there's going to be a bit of a plateau there, because you have to, although we've been working on pallets and stakes and fencing and stuff like that, the bottom end of the tree is still sitting on the roadside. So there's a lot of stuff in stock, probably roadside, that will take a couple of weeks to a month to probably run through the system.
Okay, Toby, are you there? Do you want to give us a go? Let's see. Is Toby receiving us? Toby, are you receiving? Toby is not receiving. Clearly, that's unfortunate. But there we go. Anyway, thank you, Mark. And Caroline, I'm going to have to take this question that you've seen come in on the chat. I'm sure Ian Stewart. Should we suspend the use of welfare units, as this would seem the most likely vector to transmit the virus on harvesting sites?
Oh, welfare units. I'm not sure I can answer that question. It's not my position to answer that question. Welfare units could take up the whole of this call and the whole of this evening, and probably the next week as well. So I'm afraid, Ian, that I can't comment. The guidance is as it is. As far as I know, then welfare units are still required on sites, but with increased levels of cleaning. And in line with social guidance rules. I absolutely understand where you're coming from, but as Confor, I'm afraid, and I'm going to jib out on this one, that I'm not going to answer that, and I'm sorry.
Thank you thanks, Caroline. That's a fair play on that. But if anybody wants to follow up with any further questions, please do follow up with us. I'm just going to go around the panelists who are with us to finish. Mark, you said earlier on, we've talked a lot about challenges, but you do see some opportunities as well. You touched on, the fact that a lot of your paperwork's had to go online. You've maybe had one meeting rather than two. Things have maybe moved a little bit more quickly. You also talked a bit about, maybe the way we report medical emergencies from the forest and whatever. Everything seems to be able to move more quickly in a crisis situation. So do you see some positives, and how can we make sure that that's not just fleeting and it is something that we can take with us after the crisis is over?
Yeah, I think with the machines and that have such sophisticated, the price of them especially, and they've sophisticated computerized systems. And yeah, this big paper trail and when it's normally, I suppose the most diplomatic way to say it is, in forestry, most of the money end of it as such, or the work end of it, is in the forest, which the rest of it then tends to be, it gets complicated. And sometimes what we're seeing during this COVID thing, it's not so complicated when you have to do it, and when needs must. For argument's sake, I see now people, simple things like a doctor's appointment. They do a video call with you, diagnose you, and then send email you a prescription. You still have to pay, but instead of losing half a day, the same with site paperwork. We're more or less now getting into getting all your stuff sent, an email, you upload it on your tablet. Meetings, you organise it that everyone, which is always the way, but it's easier, everyone sticks to it, you meet, you keep your distance, you get it done. You just want to do it. There probably is some things to be learned from it. It's hard to say what, because health and safety and all that, you don't want to be anyone to say anything. I admire Caroline, the way she talked about that. I'm definitely not getting into it. It seems to be a hot potato, that but all I will say on that subject is, if you question health and safety in this day and age, you seem to be a cowboy, which is wrong. You should be able to question something. It doesn't mean you're not going to do it, but you should question the means that you get to there, or is there a better way of doing it? There seems to be an awful lot of people trying to decide the one thing, where really just get it in a room, get it trashed out, and just get it up there and we get on with it, instead of it going on forever and ever. Because as Caroline said, that debate, I wouldn't get in that either, because that is just, sooner go out and stick my head in the bucket. It is just one of those debates where forestry is unique, and I think that's what people have to, from working in, anyone that works in the forest will tell you, it is unique. I know it's they're trying to get it like construction, and I know I'm sticking my head up here, but I'm not going to get into it. But if you're going to pick one thing, pick everything else that comes around it. You know, you can't just pick the one thing. The welfare thing, I won't even get into, but I do think there's other things to be addressed there also.
All right, thank you, Mark. Just briefly, Smithy, some positives, some opportunities to do things differently from the current crisis. Any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think from every situation there's constraints as well as opportunities, isn't there? So, you know, one of them being what we're doing just now. Would we have done this without COVID-19? Probably not. You know, Mark touched on a few of the things there. You know, things like tablets, invoicing, stuff like that. You know, a lot of the softwares in the machines there that we perhaps don't use to the full capabilities. So perhaps this is an opportunity to start using some of these technologies that are there available to us. You know, why have them and not use them?
Yep, I'm going to get Toby's back on the call. This is your last chance, Toby. Call in Herefordshire. Toby, are you there? And we've failed. We'll just have to accept we've failed. I'm going to ask Caroline finally, and Stuart, you've got a couple of sentences, opportunities, you know, positive opportunities from challenging crisis.
Okay, I think the opportunity is that the public and government see forestry as a critical industry. They see it as an essential industry, and the goods that we produce as essential industry. And I think, if anything, we can see, you know, a silver lining on that. Yeah, over to Stuart.
Thanks, Caroline. I think that trying to be optimistic with promise of a green economic recovery, that should see governments take greater interest in supporting a bounce back and future growth in our industry. And what I would say, you know, as a final message from me is echo Caroline's point. We've got no magic wand, but we've got the opportunity to speak up for the industry. So after the seminar, do please keep telling us what will help, and we'll try and provide as much information as we can to help get through into the next phase.
Okay, thank you very much, Stuart. Thanks to Caroline, thanks to Smithy, thanks to Mark, and thanks to Toby. What we'll do is we'll take some of Toby's other comments and we'll include them in the email that goes out to everybody tomorrow. Just unfortunate, there always seems to be one place where the internet just fails us at some point on these video calls. But thanks everybody for taking part, and to Kate as well for her update. Thanks very much for that. Details of that will be sent out in the email too. Please keep visiting Confor's COVID-19 web hub. More guidance will be added there soon. Please keep up to date with us on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And finally, as we did last time, can everyone turn their cameras back on so that my silent colleague Neil Cuthbert can take his sea of faces picture to use on social media. If people don't turn them back on, we always seem to have some bizarre little kind of circles in the middle. So everybody just stick your camera back on for a minute. And while you're all doing that and Neil's wrestling with that, the email tomorrow will include a summary of the webinar and a link to the recording. There'll be a chance to ask further questions if you didn't have the time or the inclination tonight. There'll be a chance to send any technical feedback, ideas for future webinars, and to send any questions about the current situation to our COVID-19 web address. Once the questions are sent there, they become part of our online FAQ process. Thanks again to our speakers. Thanks to all of you for joining us this evening. Confor will be hosting further webinars, as we've said. We'll hope you'll join us again soon. If you've not been on Google Meet before, you can disconnect at the bottom of the screen by hovering over the white bar, clicking the red phone. Enjoy the rest of your evening, and all the very best to you, your families, your friends, and indeed your businesses. Thanks very much, and good night, everybody. Cheers.
Thanks, David. Thanks, everybody. Right.